All right, so get ready because this deep dive is going to be a little different.
Oh.
Yeah. We're going to explore flat Earth beliefs.
Oh?
You guys sent in some really interesting stuff on this, and I'm actually really curious to unpack it all.
Yeah.
It's not every day that we sort of dive into a belief system that, let's just say, challenges
Yeah.
what most of us consider common knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
Right.
it's super fascinating how people form these worldviews,
Yeah.
especially when those views go against the grain
Mm.
of what is widely accepted by most.
So before we jump into what flat earthers actually believe,
Okay.
can we do a little history lesson first?
Sure.
Because these ideas they're not exactly new.
Right. Yeah. Variations of the flat Earth theory have been around for centuries.
Yeah.
But in the mid 20th century, things started to get a bit more organized with this group
Okay.
called the International Flat Earth Society.
Okay.
It actually had thousands of members back in the 70s.
Really?
Yeah, and they were led by this guy, Charles Kenneth Johnson, who was really good at getting the word out.
That's wild. I had no idea there was this whole organized movement behind it.
Yeah.
But what's even crazier to me is this 2017 poll you sent over.
Okay.
It said that 1% of Americans actually believe that the Earth is flat.
Wow.
And another 6% aren't sure, what
Yeah.
what drives people to those conclusions.
So let's start by breaking down some of the core beliefs.
Okay.
You mentioned in your notes
Mm-hmm.
that they see the Earth as a flat disk,
Right.
but it actually gets even more specific than that.
Okay.
They believe that the Arctic Circle is in the center
Okay.
and that Antarctica isn't even a continent,
Wow.
but it's a giant ice wall that surrounds the edge of the disk.
Okay, so no globe,
Right.
just a giant flat pancake with an ice wall border.
Yeah, basically.
And what about gravity?
Okay.
I've heard they have some alternative explanations for that too.
Yeah. We don't buy into gravity as we understand it.
Yeah.
They have this idea of universal acceleration.
Okay.
So basically, they think that the Earth is constantly moving upwards, like a giant elevator.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, so they think we're all just constantly going up.
Yeah, basically.
But wouldn't we feel that? And how does that explain why gravity feels stronger in some places than others?
Okay, yeah.
Shouldn't it feel weaker at the edges of this flat Earth than at the center?
That's a great question, and it really highlights one of the flaws in this theory.
Okay.
This constant upward acceleration doesn't really hold up when you consider all the complexities
Right.
of gravity
Yeah.
as we understand it
Right.
on a round Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But flat earthers approach things differently.
Okay.
They rely on this thing called the zetetic method.
The zetetic method.
Yeah.
What's that?
So basically, it's understanding the world through direct observation
Okay.
and personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
They really emphasize sensory data,
Mm.
those complex scientific explanations that you were talking about.
So instead of relying on scientific studies and models,
Right.
they focus on what they can see
Exactly.
and experience for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they put so much emphasis on
Yes.
the lack of visible curvature
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the horizon
Yeah.
or how the horizon just looks flat.
Right.
It's all about what they can see with their own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But how do they explain things that we can't see? Like lunar eclipses, you know what I mean?
Well, that's where the model really starts to run into some problems.
Okay.
So, for example, they use this analogy of a spotlight sun
Oh, okay.
to explain day and night cycles.
Okay.
So they picture the sun as this small, bright object
Oh,
that's circling over the flat Earth,
okay.
and it illuminates different areas as it moves.
So like a lamp?
Kind of, yeah.
That's a creative visual. I'll give
Yeah.
them that. But how does that spotlight sun explain a lunar eclipse
Right.
where the Earth casts a shadow on the moon?
Yeah.
Wouldn't the sun in their model just shine right past the Earth?
Exactly.
Right.
And that's just one example.
Yeah.
Their model also has trouble explaining why the moon looks the same from all these different parts of the world.
Right.
Because if the Earth were actually flat and the moon was close,
Right.
they believe it would
Yeah.
look totally different depending on where you were standing.
That's true.
It's much easier to explain
Mm-hmm.
with a spherical Earth model and a distant moon.
Yeah, it sounds like they're picking and choosing what evidence to accept,
Yeah.
focusing on things that support their view
Mm-hmm.
and ignoring the stuff that contradicts it. Like
Right.
you mentioned that lunar eclipses are well documented.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of observations
Right.
and consistent explanations for them.
But flat earthers,
Right.
they tend to be very skeptical of scientific institutions.
Yeah.
Like NASA,
Mm-hmm.
which contributes to them like not accepting those explanations.
Right.
They see it as part of a larger conspiracy to hide the truth
Right.
about the Earth.
Okay. So we're seeing some patterns here.
Yeah.
Reliance on what they can see and experience,
Yes.
distrust of scientific institutions,
Mm-hmm.
and a focus on the evidence that supports what they already believe.
Right.
It's like they created their own system of knowledge.
Yes. It's like they've chosen a different set of rules
Okay.
for understanding the world.
Yeah.
A set of rules that prioritizes
Okay.
personal experience and intuition
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
the scientific method.
That's a great way to put it.
So,
we're starting to get a sense of the what
right.
of flat Earth beliefs,
Mhm.
but what about the why?
Okay.
Why are these beliefs so persistent?
Yeah.
What's the psychology behind it all?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
And that's what we'll explore next.
Ooh, I like it.
It's not just about a lack of scientific understanding.
Okay.
There are deeper psychological and social factors at play that contribute to the appeal and persistence of these beliefs.
Okay, cool. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So we're like right in the middle of unpacking these flat Earth beliefs, and it's already been a wild ride.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around this whole universal acceleration thing, but we've only like scratched the surface, right?
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like the psychology and social aspects.
Right. Okay, so let's dive into that. Why?
Ooh.
You mentioned confirmation bias earlier.
Right.
Can you explain that a bit more? Like, how does that relate to all of this?
Yeah, so confirmation bias is basically our tendency to favor information.
Okay.
That confirms what we already believe,
Yeah.
even if that information is like flawed or incomplete.
Okay.
And we all do it. To some extent, it's just like a natural human tendency.
So it's like we're drawn to the evidence that supports what we already think.
Right.
And we kind of ignore or downplay the stuff that challenges our views.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see how that would play a role here.
Yeah, exactly. And with flat Earth beliefs,
Mm.
that bias can be really strong.
Okay.
They'll focus on evidence that seems to support their model,
Right.
like the appearance of a flat horizon,
Mm-hmm.
but then dismiss evidence that contradicts it,
Right.
like lunar eclipses and
Right.
all the evidence that we have for that.
And speaking of things that cast a shadow,
Oh, yeah.
I can't help but think about the role of social media in all of this.
Right.
You know, you sent over some info on some pretty prominent figures in the flat Earth movement, like
Yeah.
Mark Sargent with his YouTube series,
Mm.
and the rapper b.o.b,
Yeah.
who tried to launch a satellite to prove that the Earth is flat.
I know, it's crazy.
Like what?
It really shows how powerful social media has become
Yeah.
for spreading these ideas.
Yeah.
Because it allows people like b.o.b and Mark Sargent to reach huge audiences.
Yeah.
And they can just put their views out there.
Right.
Often without like fact-checking or anything.
Right. There's not as much scrutiny
Yeah.
as traditional media outlets.
Right.
And it creates these echo chambers online where people are like only exposed to information that reinforces what they already believe.
Hey.
It's easy to get caught up in that,
Yeah.
especially when you have charismatic figures promoting these ideas and then these whole online communities.
Yeah, it's like finding a tribe, you know?
Right.
People are drawn to communities where they feel understood
Right.
and where they feel validated.
Exactly.
And for some people, these communities provide a sense of belonging
Yeah.
and purpose that they might not find elsewhere.
Right. And then that makes it even harder to challenge those beliefs.
Yes, definitely.
You know, it's not just about presenting scientific evidence anymore.
Right.
It's about navigating this whole social landscape where identity and belonging are tied into these belief systems.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the human element,
Mhm.
you know, the emotional and social needs that are being met within these communities.
Right. So, like, how do we approach these conversations then?
Right.
Is it even possible to have, like, a productive dialogue with someone who believes this stuff?
It's definitely challenging,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's impossible.
Okay.
I think the key is to approach those conversations with empathy
Okay.
and respect.
Okay.
You know, people are more receptive to new information
Mm-hmm.
when they feel like they're being heard and understood.
So put down the textbook and open up the conversation.
Yeah.
Don't just, like, lecture at them with facts.
Right.
But try to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly.
So what are some, like, practical tips for doing that?
Well, instead just like dismissing their beliefs outright,
Okay.
you could try asking genuine questions.
Okay.
Like, What led you to this conclusion? Or can you help me understand your perspective?
Okay.
These kinds of open-ended questions really invite them to explain their reasoning.
Okay.
And it gives you a chance to really listen and learn.
So active listening is key here.
Yeah.
Really trying to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. But how do we avoid, like, getting sucked into that
Oh, yeah.
us versus them dynamic?
Well, it's all about finding common ground.
Okay.
Maybe you both share a fascination with the natural world
Right.
or a desire to understand how things work.
Right.
Start there. Acknowledge that shared interest and build from there.
And emphasize that critical thinking
Yes.
is a journey.
Yes.
Not a destination.
It's something that we all continue to develop
Right.
throughout our lives.
And you might not change their mind,
Right.
but you can plant seeds of doubt,
Yeah.
encourage curiosity, and maybe open the door to a different way of seeing the world.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good starting point. But what about conspiracy theories?
Right.
You mentioned that flat earthers tend to be skeptical of institutions like NASA. Where does that fit into the picture?
Well, conspiracy thinking is often a key element
Okay.
in these belief systems.
So flat earthers believe that these powerful entities, like governments or scientific organizations, are deliberately concealing the truth.
Yeah, the truth about the Earth's shape.
Right, and they see themselves as the ones who are uncovering this hidden truth.
Yes, exactly.
Which makes them feel like they're in the know, part of a select group that understands what's really going on.
Exactly. And it's empowering
Right.
to feel like you figured something out
Yeah.
that most people haven't.
It's almost like an exclusive club.
Yeah.
They've got this secret knowledge that the rest of us are blind to.
And it plays into our natural desire to understand the world
Right.
and to feel like we have some control over it.
Yeah, and especially in a world that can feel so chaotic
Right.
and uncertain.
When people feel like the official narrative is being controlled or manipulated,
Right.
they're more likely to gravitate toward these alternative explanations, even if those explanations lack evidence
Right.
or defy logic.
It's like a rejection of the establishment,
Yeah.
a rebellion against authority. And in a world with, like, information overload and so much misinformation.
It's easy to see how these theories take hold.
Right.
That's why critical thinking and media literacy are so important.
Yes.
We need to be able to, like, evaluate information from different sources,
Yeah.
identify biases, discern fact from fiction.
It's like a crucial skill these days.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly crucial in this digital age.
And it's not just about, like, avoiding conspiracy theories.
Right.
It's about being able to engage in, like, thoughtful discussions with people who have different beliefs. Even beliefs that we might think are outlandish.
Exactly. It's about fostering
Yeah.
a culture of respectful dialogue and critical thinking,
Right.
even when we disagree.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to those notes you sent.
Okay.
They had a bunch of tips
Yeah.
for navigating those tricky conversations.
Yeah.
And one that stood out to me
Okay.
was to focus on shared values
Oh, yeah.
rather than getting bogged down in the specifics of the belief.
Right. So, like, finding that common ground we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Instead of arguing about the shape of the earth.
Right.
Maybe you can connect on the importance of, like, questioning things.
Yes.
Not blindly accepting what you're told.
You could say something like,
Right.
hey, I really admire your commitment to questioning things and thinking for yourself. I also believe it's important to be critical
Yeah.
and not just take things at face value.
Right.
That way you're validating
Yeah.
their desire to be a critical thinker,
Right.
while also opening up space
Yeah.
for a more nuanced conversation.
It's like saying,
Yeah.
I see you, I hear you, I respect your process, even if I don't agree with your conclusion,
Right.
which feels so much more constructive
Yeah.
than just shutting down the conversation
Thanks.
or resorting to personal attacks.
And remember, sometimes the best approach is just to listen.
Oh, yeah.
Really try to understand where they're coming from,
Right.
what their fears and motivations are.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you learn.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
So it's about being empathetic,
Yes.
respectful, finding that common ground,
Yeah.
and really listening to understand their perspective.
Exactly.
Okay, those are great takeaways. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about how we can all be more discerning consumers of information,
Right.
especially online.
Right. We live in a world where it's so easy to be bombarded
Right.
with misinformation.
That's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
We need to be equipped with the tools to navigate this crazy information landscape and make informed decisions about what to believe.
Yeah, it's like we need to develop a mental filter for all this information.
So what are some key things to look for? Like when we're evaluating information online, how can we spot those red flags that something might be fishy?
There are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay.
First, consider the source.
Oh, yeah.
Who is presenting this information?
Right.
Are they a credible expert?
Okay.
Do they have any known biases? Are they connected to organizations that might have an agenda?
It's like the old saying, consider the source.
Exactly.
If something is coming from a website or social media account that's known for promoting conspiracy theories, that's a big red flag.
Big red flag.
Yeah.
And look for evidence.
Does the information align with what you already know about the topic?
Right.
Are there citations, links to reputable sources?
Yeah.
Or is it just a bunch of claims with no evidence?
And be wary of emotional language.
Oh, yeah.
Or sensational headlines.
Right.
Because a lot of times misinformation is designed to trigger strong emotions.
Oh, yeah, like fear or anger.
Exactly.
To make us share it without thinking.
Right. It plays on our emotions to kind of bypass our rational thinking.
So if something makes you feel really strongly, take a step back.
Pause.
And ask yourself, is this information coming from a reliable source?
Right.
Is there evidence to support these claims?
Yeah.
Am I letting my emotions cloud my judgment?
That's right. It's about taking a step back and engaging those critical thinking skills before we hit that share button.
Yes, because once it's out there, it's hard to take back, even if you realize later it was wrong.
And don't be afraid to do your own research.
Yes.
If something seems too good to be true or too outrageous, it probably is.
Right.
Take some time to verify the information. Look at multiple sources.
Right.
Use fact-checking websites.
Yeah, like Snopes and PolitiFact.
Exactly. They can help you sort out what's true.
And what's not.
Yeah.
There are so many resources out there.
Right.
We should use them.
And finally, remember, it's okay to be skeptical.
Oh, yeah.
Don't just blindly trust everything you read.
Right.
Healthy skepticism is a key part of critical thinking.
It means questioning things.
Yeah.
Demanding evidence. Being open to changing your mind.
Exactly.
So it's not about being cynical or distrusting everything. It's about being discerning and thoughtful about the information we take in and the information that we share.
Because in the end, we're all responsible for contributing to a more informed and truthful world.
Well said.
This has been really insightful.
Yeah, this deep dive has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Of course.
Welcome back to the final part.
Oh, wow, already.
Yeah, I know, right?
Time flies.
It really does when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into flat Earth beliefs.
Okay.
It's been pretty fascinating so far.
Yeah, it has.
Exploring the what and the why behind this really, unconventional way of seeing the world.
Yeah, it really highlights how powerful belief systems can be, you know, and how they shape our understanding of reality.
Right.
Even when they go against all this evidence.
You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of needing to feel like you're in the know.
Right.
Like you're part of this exclusive group that has access to some kind of hidden truth.
Right.
It seems like that's a big part of what draws people to these kinds of beliefs, whether it's flat Earth or, something totally different.
It's a really powerful motivator.
Yeah.
That desire to feel like you've figured something out.
Yeah.
Something that most people haven't.
Right, like you're special.
Yeah, and to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Right, and it can be appealing in a world that can feel chaotic and uncertain.
Especially when you add social media with those echo chambers and algorithms.
Right.
It's easy to see how those beliefs can spread.
And solidify.
Yeah, because it creates a sense of validation.
Right.
Belonging.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by all these like-minded people who reinforce your beliefs.
And it makes you feel like your worldview is the dominant one, even if it's actually a fringe perspective.
Exactly. Which makes it even harder to have productive conversations.
Right.
Bridge those divides.
But like we talked about before, approaching those conversations with empathy and respect,
Yes.
a genuine desire to understand, that's a good place to start.
It's about remembering that behind every belief, there's a person with their own experiences, their own motivations,
their own fears.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We talked about the core beliefs of the Flat Earth movement, the psychology and the social factors, the role of social media.
Right.
We even gave some tips for talking with people who hold these beliefs.
But I still have one big question.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Why?
Why do these beliefs persist?
Yeah.
Even though there's so much evidence that contradicts it.
What is it about us?
Yeah.
Like the human mind that makes us susceptible to this stuff?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Something that we've been trying to figure out for centuries.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer. But it probably boils down to a few key things.
Okay. I'm all ears.
First, like we talked about earlier, our brains are wired for pattern recognition.
Right, yeah.
We're constantly looking for connections.
Yeah.
Explanations.
Even when they don't exist.
Right, even when they don't exist.
So we're natural storytellers.
Yeah.
Always trying to make sense of the world.
Right, and sometimes those stories lead us down some pretty interesting paths.
That's a good way to put it.
And we crave certainty.
Oh, yeah.
We don't like the unknown.
It can be scary.
It can be really scary.
So we cling to beliefs that make us feel safe.
Right, even if those beliefs aren't based on solid evidence.
It's like we'd rather have the wrong answer than no answer at all.
Yeah.
But we want to feel like we get it, even if we actually don't.
And then there's the social aspect.
Right?
We're social creatures.
Yeah, we're influenced by the people around us.
Exactly, and if everyone around us shares our beliefs, it makes those beliefs feel more real.
Right, it's that belonging again.
Yeah, that sense of community.
And lastly, I think there's a little bit of rebellion in some of these beliefs, too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like pushing back against authority.
Right.
Challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
Asserting your independence.
Like, I'm not just going to blindly accept what you tell me.
Right.
I'm going to think for myself.
Even if your conclusions are different.
But that spirit of questioning is important.
It is.
But it needs to be balanced with critical thinking and a willingness to consider evidence.
Right.
Even evidence that might contradict what we think.
So it's a balancing act.
Yes.
Hold on to that curiosity, but also develop the skills to evaluate information critically.
And be open to changing your mind.
That's intellectual humility.
Yes.
Something we could all use a little more of.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
We went way beyond just flat Earth.
Yeah, we did.
And got into some like really fundamental aspects of human psychology.
For sure.
The way we process information.
It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It's such a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it really is.
It brings up so many questions about how we form our beliefs.
Right, how we interact with information.
Yeah.
How we navigate this world.
Well, this world is becoming more and more complex.
Yeah, and uncertain.
Exactly.
And on that note, we want to leave you with a final thought.
All right.
The world is full of these fascinating and sometimes perplexing
beliefs and ideas.
So embrace that curiosity.
Yes.
Question everything. Do your own research.
Yeah.
And be open to changing your mind.
That's the beauty of being a lifelong learner.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.